In the era of artificial intelligence, we are all becoming dumb. Brain rot has been declared as the Oxford Word of the Year, and unfortunately, the reality most of us seem to be living daily. It has been defined as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state as a result of overconsumption of online content considered to be trivial or unchallenging. Brain rot, as per Oxford, gained new prominence this year as a result of concerns arising out of consuming excessive amounts of low-quality online content, the usage frequency of which, by the way, increased by 230% between 2023 and 2024. That's 1 year. Particularly for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, those young adults and teenagers who are largely responsible for the use and creation of the digital content. Interestingly, they are the ones using this term on their social media accounts, the very space which is the reason for quote-unquote brain rot. Now, psychiatrists believe that brain rot is a first step towards a larger, serious problem of brain fog, which is suddenly not remembering stuff. They say that because the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is crucial for decision-making and impulse control, is still developing at a young age, the younger generation is more vulnerable to it. Now, let me try and get a wider perspective of it. On the broadcast, I'm joined by Mr. Pavan Duggal, cybersecurity expert, and Nirali Bhatia, cyber psychologist. Good evening and namaskar. Welcome to Mirror Now. Let me begin by asking Nirali Bhatia, you, and we're expecting Mr. Pavan Duggal to join us shortly. What do you make of this? This is, we may laugh over it, the fact that this is an Oxford Word of the Year, brain rot, but it is a serious concern as far as our consumption of online content is concerned. We're not, most of the times at least, not consuming the kind of content that is perhaps considered constructive for our brains. We're only scrolling through mindless reels, entertainment. That's all we're doing most of our time.
Sneha, this year has been a year of words. We've come across so many terms. Doom scrolling, we call it. Brain rot, now we call it. And there are many more other Gen Z terms that we've come across. However, we have been using these terms very loosely, very casually. But if we go in the depth, it is really a serious concern. As the name suggests, it's rotting our brains. We are being stimulated with overdose of content and a free-flowing content. There's no filter, there is no stop to it. Like, okay, until and unless the battery drains out, you're still consuming. But we're not looking at the quality of the content and in terms of where do we draw the line. So there's an overstimulation to the brain, but it still feels unfulfilled because of the quality of the content that we are consuming. There's also a neurological explanation to this. Now, brain has plasticity, which means it has the ability to rewire itself, to relearn, to create new pathways. What we are doing, and that is neuroplasticity, is what helps us in forming certain habits, whether good or whether bad. Now, this kind of doom scrolling is impacting our brain. What is it continuously telling us? That instant gratification, mindless scrolling, not application of, or not intellectual application of mind. And hence, we are becoming, victim to that addiction so far and not getting appropriate stimulation. So that's where, however, the key is also in that plasticity is such a beautiful thing that if we become mindful of this habit of ours, we can bring in the change and again rewire the brain also. But however, right now, we are completely focused only on mindless scrolling.
Yeah. Let me also welcome Mr. Pavan Duggal onto this broadcast. Mr. Duggal, brain rot leading to brain fog is a serious concern. But because we are so addicted to, social media, there is, of course, a concerted effort by companies as well, as far as their algorithms are concerned, in making us addicts of social media.
Surely, companies have a one-point agenda. They consider us as data entities, not just who are generating data, but also who are becoming huge consumption points of data. That's the reason social media has become the common go-to vomiting platform for every data stakeholder. Every data stakeholder is vomiting all kinds of data on social media, and we are being subjected to all kinds of data vomits, with the result that a lot of this data may or may not be conducive to either our mental growth, to our mental mindset, or to the overall development of personality. Consequently, we find that when these new terms are coming up, they're only representing a new change in the sociological mindset of people at large. Today, people have this immense fear of missing out. So in order to escape from the fear of missing out, they want to scroll as much content, death scrolling or doom scrolling as they state, so that they can continue to keep on consuming as much information, so that in the ultimate hope that their mind will be able to cull out what's more relevant or more topical. Little do we realize that when we are exposing our minds to such humongous volumes of irrelevant, non-exclusive or non-significant data, your mind is going to dim up. It's going to potentially be exposed to a lot of health consequences. Well, some experts say even Parkinson's disease could also be coming on the way by this excessive exposure to social media. So somewhere down the line, we have to now realize that exposure to social media content is now a health hazard. And it's in our interest, our hands, to determine how much prejudicially do we want our health to be impacted. And therefore, the need for abstaining or restraining from accessing social media content should be an important priority, should we really want to lead a good, healthy life for all of us.
Yeah. I think moderation is something that the humankind hasn't understood properly so far in terms of its implementation, Pawan Duggal. But Nirali Bhatia, one of the arguments that is given is the fact that every generation has some kind of invention that sort of is blamed for its deterioration. There was television that came. Eventually, television was called the idiot box. Now it's social media. Is there a difference, or would you consider that the same? The impact of television was considered bad at one point of time. The impact of social media is now considered to be bad.
See, the ideology is right that yes, every invention has come up with its own challenge. However, if we compare social media's invention to any other in the past, the major difference is that this is mobile. This is 24/7 on. When we spoke of idiot box, it was sitting at one place in one room. And it was a common thing which was used by the entire family. So there was automatically moderation, automatically time management, and it was not 24/7 on. And the content was also being regulated. Media industry has had, but unfortunately, social media, there is no regulation. It is 24/7. It's become too personal. It's mobile. It's 24/7 with you. Whether you're in the washroom, you're in the car, you're in the kitchen, you're in the class, every single place, it is with you. That is why it is much more detrimental in its effect. The effect is fast growing. That lack of regulation is what is adding to the impact, that if there is an age inappropriate content, or if there is a absolutely rubbish content, a mindless content, it is all also impacting. So it's not just the screen or the social media availability, it's also the quality of the content, lack of regulation, lack of monitoring. Now, this device is not alone only for social media. It has become a very integral part. See, television has a set purpose, and it had one type of purpose. But in terms of mobiles, it has multi-purpose. It has become key to our communication. So refraining and distancing from it is also becoming challenging.
Pawan Duggal, one of the moves that is now being appreciated by the entire world is how Australia has banned social media for kids under the age of 16. How much of that would impact younger generation? Because there's also that argument, the more you curtail, the more this will be done illegally and in a hidden manner.
So banning is like a 19th century mindset which is trying to deal with a 21st century problem. Clearly, it's bound to fail. It invariably fails, and more often than not, it actually lands up diverting far more traffic to the banned content or the banned platform than otherwise the traffic would have organically generated. So banning is clearly not the best way forward. Australia has come up with this new law. The objectives are wonderful. You have clearly your heart at the right place. But the problem is, how do you actually get it implemented? Well, Australia is already beginning to struggle in that regard. And the children in Australia are now coming up with new mechanisms so as to bypass the ban using technologies like virtual private networks. So the problem is, now you've already seen the children tasting blood in the form of exposure to social media content. Suddenly, one fine day, you say, look, we are banning you from social media content. That's not going to happen. That's going to further propel children to go ahead and bypass the ban, contravene the provisions of the ban, and keep on exploring or exposing themselves to social media content. Hence, I think a more new holistic approach has to be thought of. And to begin with, we can actually begin with very small baby steps. Rather than complete ban, how about looking at an internet-free weekend? A Saturday and Sunday where the family decides nobody is going to go on the internet. Well, let's put our devices in a locker and let's move out of the home. Otherwise, just spend some quality time with our own selves. We suddenly will start realizing how much new quantum
But can the parents afford that, Pawan Dugal? You know,
the family is
parents,
able to spend, which
us
otherwise is
adults
going
are in
into
such
routine mundane.
professions that we can't afford to leave our phones for 2 days and be away from work.
Well, I agree with you. Therefore, to begin with, let's try to do a Sunday. I'm sure one day is a holiday that's for the family. So if we can try to make a promise to the family, no phone calls, no internet on a Sunday. To begin with, we'll automatically begin to start seeing humongous value additions, humongous new benefits, and consequently, you'll then be encouraged. Yes, I'm not saying be completely abstaining yourself from the internet, but yes, abstaining from social media could be a good starting point. Maybe a conversation with your children. And what are the more constructive sides which can actually help empower the children, which can help grow their personalities in multidimensional manners? That could be much better exposure rather than just exposure on the Instagrams or the Facebooks of the world, where you find that the attention span today is less than 4 seconds. If in the first 4 seconds you're not able to capture the attention, they just swipe you on to the next video. Now, in the world of shorts and smaller videos, I think we have all started vegetating. And therefore, it's our duty as parents to ensure that our children do not vegetate on social media content. And for that, if we have to take some strict measures, so be it. But I think if we treat them as friends and tell them the downsides of it, that could be a much more powerful way rather than to expect a ban like Australia to come in, because the ban is only on paper. How will it actually get enforced will be a big question. So the onus will still come back upon us as parents, upon us as family members, that we sensitize our children. They need to minimize their social media exposure to content and maximize their exposure to other constructive areas or vistas of knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Nirali, you know, why just blame the kids? We as adults are addicted to our phones. If parents are constantly on their phones, the child will do the exact same thing. If you have a culture of reading in your family, the child will pick that up. If they see you reading a book or writing something, that's what they'll pick up. And likewise for the phone, if they see you consuming online content all the time, that's what they're going to do. Why just blame the kids? And therefore, the question is, how do you then move forward? You have your profession to look at. You have, you know, social media. One of the pros for social media has also been the fact that long-lost friends have met online through social media accounts. That's also one of the pros of social media. So how do you then go about it?
So, Sneha, I will go back to the Australian measure. I beg to differ with Pawan sir a little. We're not looking at ban as, I completely agree, it's difficult to implement. But this is in answer to your question that all of us know the ill effects. But now the cat is out of the bag. It's going to be very difficult for us as parents, for to regulate or otherwise individually. What we need is a collective effort. The idea is perfect. Give a weekend free of social media, but it's not going to happen if it happens only in one family. Then there is another family from where the pressure comes, or where there is comparison, or where there is FOMO, etc. If you really want to do it, ask the social media companies to put it down for a weekend. That's how it can work at this point of time. It's not like parents don't understand that, oh, this is not good for my children. But like I said, it is on your personal device, and that device is used for multiple purposes, primarily communication. Can you afford to switch off your phone for 2 days? You cannot. But on that phone, you have social media. Now, even if you put these regulations, the screen time regulations, they are not like, oh, they're never going to allow you. It is on to you. It's your self-control. And for years, we've been speaking about this. We've seen that it is not being possible. And that's where it is time to have a stringent impact. Begin it as a ban. And of course, in the meantime, you can collectively come through a common intent. Right now, the intent, what in Australia, what we see is besides parent, the intent is coming from the government. Now, this intent has to be aligned with the social media companies as well, with all those who are involved in this kind of content flow for children or even for adults. Once we come on the same page that yes, this is how it is, detrimental, and let's do this, everything is possible. Then we may not really require a ban. But the point is, one person in the house or one family in an environment, it's never going to work. I've had families and cases who've tried a lot of things. But at some point, we have to understand children at that age have a massive peer influence. They not only, there are some families who have really, implemented that we will not allow our children until age of 16 and 18 to get onto social media. These kids are outcasted in the class. They're not part of groups because they don't know what are the common points to talk, where the entire class is talking about it. So there are negative effects also if we are going to single out people. Hence the collective effort. And I look at the ban as a beginning or the first step
Yeah.
of a collective effort, maybe with the challenges, but at least something. When it's not common, it becomes easy. If nobody is having it, I will not feel like having it either. So I guess if we want to really do something, yes, if the
Yeah.
entire society decides that this weekend we are not going to use social media, it will still work, but not just one family or one house.
Yeah, yeah. So there needs to be, there needs to be a collective attempt. And, the world has been trying to get a common
True.
regulatory law as far as social media is concerned. That still hasn't happened. Hopefully that should happen soon. At least one step towards the regulation of this vast gray space, which has no black and white and is also very harmful for the younger generation. I leave it there. Hopefully next year, Oxford will not have a new word, Nirali and Pawan Dugalji, and they will have to go back to the good old term of brain development or brain blossoming instead of coming up with a new word like brain rot and terming it the word of the year. But thank you very much to both of you for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on this entire concerning situation. Namaskar.